Now, you may believe tomorrow begins when the alarm goes off. You open your eyes, you get out of bed, and a new day begins. But think about what you do in the final moments before you fall asleep. If you spend those moments reviewing fear, disappointment, and everything that might go wrong, you are not necessarily preparing for tomorrow. You may simply be practicing the same state again. And then you ask the morning to feel different while carrying the same frightened self into the night. So the question is, what if the person who wakes tomorrow is being rehearsed by the person who falls asleep tonight? Now think about what you do on an ordinary night. You turn off the lights, you arrange the pillow, you put the phone down, and then very often you pick it up one more time just to make sure nothing has happened in the last 30 seconds. Finally, you close your eyes. The body is tired, the room is quiet, but the mind begins opening everything you were trying to close. You replay what somebody said to you. You replay what you said to them, then you think of what you should have said, what you might say tomorrow, and what they may say in return. The conversation is over in the world, but it is still taking place inside you. And then another thought arrives. The bill that has not been paid, the decision that has not been made, the mistake you wish you could change, the possibility that tomorrow may bring another disappointment. Your body has officially closed for the evening, but the mind has called another emergency meeting. Now, most people do not do this because they enjoy suffering. They do it because they believe worry is a form of preparation. They believe that if they keep thinking about the problem, they will somehow be safer from it. But are you really preparing yourself? Or are you simply practicing the same fear again? Why would you use the final moments of the day to strengthen the very state you are asking tomorrow to remove? Now, this is where something very important begins to reveal itself. Worry often disguises itself as responsibility. It tells you that if you keep thinking about the problem, if you keep turning it over and over in your mind, then perhaps you are doing something useful. But what are you really doing? You may be rehearsing the same emotional state until it becomes familiar. And what becomes familiar, after a while, begins to feel like who you are. You experience disappointment, and then you say, I am disappointed. You face financial pressure, and then you say, I am powerless. You do not know what tomorrow will bring, and then you say, I am unsafe. You make a mistake, and then you quietly turn that mistake into an identity. But an experience is not an identity. You can have a problem without becoming the problem. You can feel fear without making fear the definition of who you are. You can move through uncertainty without carrying the belief that life has abandoned you. Most people use the final moments of the night to review the old self. They review the hurt, the limitation, the failure, the same familiar story. And the shift begins when you stop reviewing the person you have been and begin rehearsing a new way of being. Experience is not identity. Now, let me give you a simple example. Imagine a man who takes great care every night to protect his house. Before going to bed, he checks the front door, then he checks the back door. He walks through every room, tests every window, closes every curtain, and makes certain that nothing from the outside can disturb him. And after doing all of that, he lies down beside a radio that plays messages of danger. The radio tells him that something is about to go wrong. It reminds him of everything he does not have. It speaks of failure, loss, shortage, and all the reasons he should be afraid of tomorrow. Every morning, the man wakes with tension in his body. He feels uneasy. He feels as if something is wrong, although he cannot explain exactly what it is. One evening, a wise friend visits him and watches this entire routine. He sees the doors being locked, he sees the windows being checked, and then he hears the radio beside the bed. The friend says, "You have guarded every entrance to the house, but you have given no attention to what is entering your mind." Think about that. If the house was secure, the doors were locked, nothing outside had entered, but all through those final waking moments, fear was being invited in and given a place beside him. And many people do the same thing. They protect the body, they prepare the room, they arrange everything around them for rest, but they leave the mind completely unguarded. It is possible to secure the room and still leave your consciousness open to everything you are trying to escape. Now bring that example back to your own life. You may adjust the pillow, you may lower the temperature, you close the curtains, set the alarm, charge the phone, and make certain that the room is ready for sleep. But what have you allowed to remain open inside you? Perhaps the lights are off, but yesterday's resentment is still awake. Perhaps the doors are locked, but tomorrow's imagined disaster has already entered. You have prepared the body to rest while the mind continues entertaining regret, comparison, deficiency, and self-condemnation. You prepare the room for sleep, but you must also prepare the consciousness that enters it. What emotional atmosphere are you creating when the outside world becomes quiet? Most of us were taught how to make a bed, how to secure a house, and how to set an alarm. But very few were ever taught how to conclude a day consciously. Now, imagine that every night before you fall asleep, you make a recording. And on that recording, you say, "Nothing ever works for me. Tomorrow is going to be difficult. I cannot handle what is coming. I am alone. I never have enough. My past will always follow me." Would you deliberately play that recording night after night? And of course you would not. You would say, "Why would I keep listening to something that fills me with fear?" And yet, many people make that same recording without using any machine at all. They make it through the final conversation they have with themselves. Now, this does not mean that every passing thought becomes an event in your life. It is not a punishment, and it is not some magical process in which one fearful idea controls your future. It is much simpler than that. A thought may pass through the mind and disappear, but a message repeated every night becomes familiar, and what becomes familiar begins to influence what you expect, what you notice, how you react, and which choices seem possible to you. After a while, the recording begins to sound like truth simply because you have heard it so often. So do not keep recording instructions for the self you are trying to leave behind. Now, the first change is simply to become aware of the moment when the old day begins again inside your mind. You are lying there, and suddenly the argument starts over. The financial fear returns. The mistake is examined one more time. Tomorrow is turned into a disaster before tomorrow has even arrived. And then the familiar sentence appears. "This always happens to me." You do not have to fight that thought. You do not have to become angry with yourself for having it. And you do not have to create another conflict inside your mind because the first conflict has already taken enough from you. You simply notice what is happening, and then you say quietly and firmly, "I will not use these final moments to strengthen this state." That is not denial. You're not pretending the problem does not exist. You're choosing not to continue rehearsing it when nothing more can be done tonight. You are not trying to force the mind into silence. You are ending your participation in an old conversation. You notice the thought, you recognize the pattern, and you no longer feed it. Now, once you stop feeding the old conversation, you must decide what you will place in its place. This is where the words "I am" become important, because "I am" is not merely the beginning of a sentence. It is the way you keep telling yourself who you are. You say, "I am exhausted, I am always behind, I am never appreciated, I am not good enough, I am afraid." And after a while, those words do more than describe a passing moment. They begin to define the self you carry into sleep. So choose differently. You may say, "I am peaceful, I am guided, I am safe within myself, I am grateful, I am open to a new beginning." Not 10 statements, not a performance, just 2 or 3 that speak honestly to what you need. I have expressed this nightly intention in these words. I am going to use these moments to review what I intend to manifest into my life. Now, review does not mean begging. It does not mean straining to make something happen. It means bringing the desired way of being into your awareness. How would peace think? How would trust breathe? How would the version of you who is no longer ruled by the past meet tomorrow? Words are the doorway. The feeling of who you are becoming is what you carry through it. Now, you do not need to create some enormous picture in your mind. You do not need to see every detail perfectly. You do not need to turn imagination into another task that you must perform correctly. Choose one simple scene. Perhaps you see yourself waking in the morning with a sense of calm. Perhaps you notice yourself speaking peacefully in a situation that once produced anger. Perhaps you feel relief in your body before your feet even touch the floor. One small scene is enough because the purpose is not to impress the mind with detail. The purpose is to become familiar with a different way of being. What would peace feel like if it were already present? Do not force an answer. Let the feeling come gently. Let yourself experience, even for a moment, what it would be like to no longer carry the old reaction. Lao Tzu taught that nature accomplishes everything without strain. A flower does not force itself to open. The river does not argue with the path before it. And you do not need to remain awake trying to make your life change. You introduce the image, you allow the feeling, and then you release the need to control what happens next. Sleep should not become another struggle. Choose the feeling, allow it, and let rest come without force. Now, most people have been taught to wait for life to give them permission to feel differently. And they say, I will be peaceful when this problem is gone. I will feel worthy when someone chooses me. I will feel secure when I have more money. I will trust life when I know exactly what is going to happen. But look at what that means. You have placed your inner state in the hands of circumstances. You are asking the outside world to decide when you are allowed to feel peace, when you are allowed to feel worthy, and when you are allowed to trust. And this is where the teaching becomes very simple. You'll see it when you believe it. Now, that does not mean you pretend the facts are not there. It does not mean that belief controls every event or that difficulty disappears because you think positively. It means that current circumstances do not have to determine the only version of you that is available. Belief changes what you notice. It changes what you permit. It changes how you speak, how you respond, and which choices begin to feel possible. It may not control every event, but it changes the consciousness from which you meet the event. You do not wait for peace before becoming peaceful. You practice peace so that peace becomes the state from which you face the problem. You are not denying reality. You are choosing the self who will respond to it. Now, there is something deeper than changing the way you feel about tomorrow. Who are you when the events of today become quiet? Are you only the mistake you made? Are you only the role you performed for everyone else? Are you only the opinion someone expressed about you? Are you only the problem that occupied your attention all day? You see, there is a part of you that can observe the fear. And if you can observe the fear, then you are more than the fear itself. There is a part of you that notices the thought, which means you are not imprisoned inside that thought. All day long, you move through the world of events. Someone approves of you, someone disappoints you, something works, something does not, and very quickly you begin to believe that these events are telling you who you are. But they are only events. When the night becomes quiet, you can release the role, the argument, the comparison, the performance, and the need to solve everything before morning. You can return to the awareness beneath all of it. This practice is not about controlling the universe. It is about refusing to hand your consciousness over to everything that happened during the day. You are more than what happened today. Now return to the question we began with. What if the person who wakes tomorrow is being rehearsed by the person who falls asleep tonight? You do not have to repair your entire life before you go to sleep. You do not have to solve every problem, answer every question, or know exactly how everything will turn out. The day may have contained conflict. It may have contained delay, rejection, financial pressure, confusion, or a decision that still has not been made. Those things happened, but they do not have to become the final definition of who you are. You can lay down the argument, you can lay down the role you have been performing, you can release the need to prove something, the fear of tomorrow, and the familiar identity that keeps saying, nothing ever changes for me. Do not enter sleep rehearsing the person you no longer wish to be. Do not ask tomorrow to become new while giving tonight back to the old self. You may not know how the situation will be resolved, you may not know when the answer will appear, but you can decide that fear will not have the final word. One thought does not magically create an entire morning, but the state you repeatedly carry into sleep can influence the consciousness with which you meet the next day. And every night, in those quiet final moments, you are given another choice. You can continue the old story, or you can begin becoming someone new. In a very real sense, tomorrow begins with the self you choose to carry into sleep tonight.